Of all the challenges we have to face on this planet, perhaps none is more important to think about on Earth Day than climate change. More frequent and intense drought, storms, heat waves, rising sea levels, melting glaciers, warming oceans, and refugees fleeing these climate disasters are all expected in the coming decades in every region of the globe. And while there are lots of things we can do at home to lower our carbon footprint, like composting and recycling, the most important thing we can do to mitigate these coming disasters is to end our dependence on fossil fuels. Driving less, carpooling, driving more, fuel-efficient or electric cars, insulating our homes better so they are more efficient to cool and to heat. These are all things that can help, but we need to do so much more than this. I'm an organic farmer. This is me and my friend Sammy. I raise sheep and grow potatoes without using synthetic chemicals on my 85-acre farm in upstate New York, and I've worked to build farms in many places throughout the Western Hemisphere. I've seen the confusion farmers face from changing weather patterns and a rapidly shifting global marketplace that is more and more difficult for small family farms to navigate. As farmers, we all know that our industry has a big carbon footprint and that we have a big role to play in meeting this challenge. I got into farming because I love food and being outdoors, growing plants and animals for food to feed my neighbors, for fiber to clothe my family and friends. It's one of the most satisfying callings to have. There's nothing better than bringing my own cheese to share with farmer friends in the mountains of Ecuador and bringing home beautiful alpaca blankets for cold northern winters. But I know that every time I fly to visit them, and every time I use diesel fuel in my tractors, and every time I fuel up on gas for my delivery vehicles, I'm doing something that is unsustainable. Like feeding this little lamb from the bottle, it can't go on forever. We're addicted to something that is hurting us bad. According to the EPA and the World Resources Institute, agriculture is responsible for 10% of greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. and 11% globally. The methane released by ruminants, including cows, sheep, and buffalo, is responsible for about a third of all of these agricultural greenhouse gas emissions, meaning that the methane from our animals is ultimately responsible for 3% of all global warming. Depending on who's counting, there are something like 1.5 billion cows on this planet and 1 billion or so sheep. Further, according to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, there are 570 million farms in the world, most of them small family operations. So this is not a point source pollution problem, and it is not an easy one to solve. If there is any solution to the problem of methane from animals on this planet, it is going to take a huge communication strategy among the world's farmers to solve. My farm is on Tug Hill in Oneida County, New York. I raise a small flock of sheep that I use for meat and wool. I also grow potatoes and garlic and dabble in lots of other things. For Creative Shepherd Farm and other farms in the Northeast, perhaps some global warming is actually a good thing. My fields are snow-covered from mid-November through the end of March, and I can easily store water for summer irrigation. As the years go by, productivity for us will likely go up as our earth warms. However, I also work with organic farmers in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas and others of Ecuador, where the changing weather patterns precipitated by climate change are anything but helpful to them. As hurricanes strengthen, droughts lengthen and intensify, and as seasonal rainfall patterns are becoming less predictable, farmers in these regions are having a harder time maintaining organic agricultural systems. It is clear that we can't continue to do things in the manner we have been for the past 100 years, driving global weather patterns to greater extremes and expecting national and global stability to result. For me, as a livestock farmer in particular, the responsibility to change my farming practice is one I cannot overlook. A lot of us have gotten into the idea that local food systems can help us in this challenge, that if we just buy food from farms that are close to where we live, we can solve a big part of the problem with the food system. But it's just not that simple. Half of the Earth's usable land is in agriculture right now, more than ever before, and it is mostly to grow animals. Only about 8% of all the energy used to produce food and get it to consumers is in the transportation. Almost all of the energy is in the production, in the fuel for tractors, the energy used to produce petrochemical herbicides and pesticides and synthetic fertilizers for use in conventional production systems. So being a local food farmer doesn't really help you solve the problem of global warming, not directly anyway. Us small farmers with animals, we like to talk about how healthy it is to raise your animals on pasture rather than on feedlots, how much better the meat is for your family to eat, and how much less stress there is for the animals. And all of this is true. And people sure do prefer to see happy animals ranging out in the grass rather than feeding from troughs full of dusty brown material, pretty much indistinguishable from sawdust to the hand and eye. But the dirty secret is that grass-fed cows produce more methane than cows eating corn and soy meal at feedlots. For all the instinctual revulsion we have to those industrial processes and systems, they are, just like humans when concentrated in cities and have smaller carbon footprints, these systems are more efficient and better for the global carbon budget. But what can we do with the methane problem? For conventional farmers, the idea of a pill or vaccine that can lower or even eliminate methane production for their animals is rapidly becoming a reality. For organic farmers, there is the possibility that natural food supplements made from macroalgae with antimicrobial properties and the ability to inhibit methane generation will soon be available to provide the same benefits. Over the past 20 years, an explosion of research into enteric methane production has included trials of vaccines to eliminate methanogens from the gut and the development of food supplements that contain chemical inhibitors of methanogenesis that prevent methane formation even when methanogenic organisms are present. In 2014, some in vitro experiments with the red alga Asparagopsis taxiformis showed that as a supplement accounting for 2% by weight of a cow's diet, the algae could reduce ruminant methane emissions by up to 99%. What is the exact enzymatic mechanism? Well, bromoform, produced by the alga, inhibits methane formation in the ruminant gut. As a result, the cows produce more propionate, a larger molecule, which they can get more energy from. Some evidence suggests that cows can potentially grow more and faster on the same amount of feed when the alga is used as a supplement. Much of the world is currently asking the questions, should we even be eating meat? How is it ethical to raise animals for food? Can we grow meat in laboratories instead? And how can we justify the continued use and expansion of live animals in our food system that causes so much harm to our ecosystems? Livestock farmers who love their herds and their way of life need answers to these questions that validate their continued existence. Organic farmers are particularly in need of solutions because it is grass-fed cows and sheep that produce the most methane. By some estimates, grass-fed animals on the range can produce up to 3 times the methane of cows fed optimized corn and soy-based diets in controlled feed systems. Many of us who farm organically value the cleaner meats, more healthy animals, and natural rotational grazing systems of our operations for their aesthetic and human health benefits, but we have to be honest about the external impacts of the decision to raise grass-fed animals on pasture and range. This organic practice as it is now is far from environmentally sustainable. If organic farmers can turn to a natural feed supplement that they can use to reduce the methane production by their animals, we can sleep better at night knowing that we are doing our part to combat the threat of global warming and know that we are providing healthy foods to our customers and our families. Figuring out how to get free-ranging animals to eat a little bit of seaweed every day is certainly going to be a trick. While animals that eat prepared mixed feeds and concentrated operations can easily have their diets altered by the farmer, that's not so easy to do when your cows and sheep are out on the pasture. Nevertheless, the promise of Asparagopsis taxiformis to serve as a global change agent, to come from the ocean and help us solve our ecological problems associated with food production, is a rare opportunity and one that Texas farmers should embrace. As the state with the largest number of organic dairy cows in industrial closed feeding systems and more cows on feedlots than any place else, Texas is a perfect place to use this strategy to make a measurable dent in the greenhouse gas emissions of our society. As you ponder yourself the questions and problems of humans living on this small blue planet today for Earth Day, I ask you to do what you can to support your local farmers who are building community resilience and economies through their development of foods and fibers for their neighbors and friends. If you know where your milk and cheese come from, talk to the people who make it and sell it about this technological revolution coming to the world of animal husbandry. And as a consumer, make good choices about the foods you buy. Eating less meat is best for the planet, but if you're a meat eater, you have choices too. Very soon, it's likely that you'll have the choice of meat and dairy products and fiber, clothing, and blankets, and lots of other farm products that are raised on farms that are working to minimize their greenhouse gas emissions. And you'll see this information on product labels and in advertising campaigns. Making the active choice to consume products from these farms is one way you change the world for the better and make sure we have a beautiful planet for our kids and theirs. Thanks very much, and happy Earth Day.